Hello, welcome. This is my pilot episode, I would imagine, since it's episode one. I am Chantal, also known as Chantieknits on Ravelry, Shanty D on Instagram. Feel free to message me on any of those platforms. Most active on Instagram, so shoot me a message. I would love to chat with you, get to know what you're working on, and get to know you as a person. So for finished objects, I'm going to start with the Bright Note sweater by, looking at my notes, Yarn and You Girl. Her name is Janine. She did the Bright Note sweater. It's the worst weight sweater. It is top down, drop shoulder, a very interesting construction. So it's mostly seamless. I did a cardigan version, but when the pattern's released, it's going to be a sweater version. So here is the cardigan version. Sorry, I can't see. Here is this wonderful colorwork pattern on the sleeves and on the body of the sweater. So that's what that looks like on the sleeve, and then on the body of the sweater it looks more like that. I'm going to post some pictures either in here on the screen or at the end. I'm new to editing, literally my first rodeo, so work with me. I'll put everything at the end if I can't put it in here while I'm talking. So I did like this sweater. I made it out of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. It's definitely a workhorse yarn, one of my go-to, especially for worsted. You can't beat the price for what you're getting. I don't like Knit Picks shipping because you do pay for shipping if you don't order a certain amount. And then for me, I live in the Midwest. Shipping takes forever. But if you live in a city, I don't know if that works better for you or not, but just be aware of that. If you do order from Knit Picks, the shipping does take a little bit, and then you have to hit a certain dollar amount in order to get free shipping. So if you're only there to get a couple balls, it might be something that may deter you in the future. Just an FYI, but I'm sure many people have worked with Knit Picks. I did a crochet steek. I'm going to put a ribbon on here, whether I get it done by the end of the test date or not is mute, but I will put a ribbon on that. It's a 2x2 border that I did. I did do slight short rows at the back, but for the most part, there is short row shaping worked into the pattern. So if you're not willing to do short rows, if you do a cardigan version like I did, you can just work with what's in the pattern already. Anything else? This one is not released yet. I think she's shooting for a February 1st release date. I'm not sure if she's releasing it on that date or that's just the end of test date, but February 1st is my deadline. So if you are interested in the sweater, just keep an eye out on that. I do know she's still looking for test knitters for some of the larger sizes. So if you want to test knit or give test knitting a shot, she does her test knitting through Yarn Pond. But I would definitely shoot her a message on Ravelry and see if she needs testers for the size that you're looking for and see what dates she would be willing to work with you for or with. Other than that, I think that's it for this sweater. This sweater took 550 grams, which is 11 balls of the Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. Again, you might use slightly less if you're doing a sweater version of it. Again, I did a cardigan version, so basically I'll put notes in my Ravelry page once it's released. My next finished object is going to be I don't know how to say it. It's a cardigan by Audrey of the Yarn Flakes. It's a French name, so I'm going to say it as best as I possibly can. Servion, something like that. It's an all over texture pattern. It's very intuitive once you get into the pattern, and if you are new to all over texture, Audrey has great video tutorials. She shows you how to read your knitting, how to do the actual texture stitch of the pattern, and the links are embedded in the pattern. So once you get the digital copy, you just kind of click the links in it, and it'll take you straight to the YouTube to show you the video of how to do the texture and how to read the knitting and all the other little tips and tricks she gives you. She does do a lot of video tutorials in her patterns if there are some like difficult or newer type constructions, and even if they aren't new, like if some of them have like German short rows in them, she'll give you a link to like different tutorials that already have, like Very Pink Knits, who has German short row tutorials, or other Japanese short row tutorials, or whatever short row she's using. Just, they're super easy to follow. I am a huge fan of Audrey, so a lot of the projects that you'll see here today are from Audrey of the Yarn Flakes, and some of them are test knits that aren't released. Well, one of them are test knits that isn't released yet, and then the rest are going to be released relatively soon, probably by the time I upload this podcast. And then if they're not, just keep an eye out. She has lots of patterns that are already released, so if you don't want to do any of the texture patterns I'm going to show you today, she does have more basic patterns on in her Ravelry store. So this one has the all over texture pattern. It's nice and airy, depending on the gauge because if you do it at a tighter gauge, won't be as airy as this one, but I wanted this to be more of a spring type cardigan. The purple, bluish, grayish is my own hand-dyed yarn. I don't sell it commercially. I just do it for fun, and it gives me a chance to like try out new bases and different types of yarn and all that other jazz. There are two places that I get my undyed yarn. Yarn.com, which is a UK-based company. But if you order a certain amount, you're not paying shipping or anything like that. And then Wool to Die For is the other one. That one's a little weird. It is a US-based company, and no matter how much yarn you buy, the shipping is like $15. It's like 14 something, but $15 rounded up. And it's just weird because it doesn't matter how much you buy. It's just 14 no matter. So you could spend $100 and pay $15 in shipping. You could spend $50 and pay $14 in shipping. So it's just weird. But they're both great companies. I would definitely recommend them to anyone who wants to try to dye their own yarn or wants to try out some different yarn bases. Wool to Die For has a lot more to choose from when it comes to like blended yarns like alpaca, yak, merino yak, or merino silk. They have definitely more of a selection, but I do like the quality of yarn.com. They only sell in 5-packs, whereas Wool to Die For sells in 10-packs, unless you get like their special, we're out of this yarn, or we have an overstock of this yarn, here's 2 skeins for this price. So yarn.com sells in 5 skein bags, and they do a lot of bare bones basics, but I love the quality of their yarn, and some of their more rustic yarns you can still find like the vegetation and things like that, which I like because it tells you that it's minimally processed. So like the non-superwash wool is called Untreated Merino, and that one I love. It's super soft, it's super strong. I think it's a woolen spun, but I'm not a spinner per se, so I can't tell you for sure if it's woolen or worsted, but I think it's woolen. It's super springy, and I love that one. That one is definitely one of my favorites from yarn.com. But this one is a 50-50 wool silk blend, and again, I dyed this one myself. And the cuff is, again, dog fur, Knit Picks Paragon in the silver, I think it is. But I think it's a US size 5 on this one, and then you go down to size 3 or 4 for the cuff, but because of the kind of gauge difference, I only did a 1 needle difference between the cuff and the actual texture pattern. And you can see this gives it a lot of spring and super airy, and I can't wait to wear it in the spring. Again, Midwest, I can't wear it now. It was just snowing for like 3 days, and it was, my dog loved it. I did not. I like starting a fire, but other than that, I'm not a fan of the snow. I get to move around the United States because of my husband's job. So we move around every 2 to 3 years, and I get to see many places. 2 years ago this time, I was in Colorado, another snowy place, but I loved Colorado. If you were thinking of doing some touristy type things and you like the outdoors, Colorado is definitely the place to do it. Colorado Springs is where we were stationed, so I got to see a lot of Colorado Springs. I only went to Denver twice, so I can't tell you much about Denver per se besides the big touristy spots, but Colorado Springs is definitely, if you love the outdoors, you'll love that. My dog loved it, hiking all the time. Red Rocks, Garden of the Gods, definitely gorgeous, gorgeous places any time of year. Summer, spring, fall. I didn't go winter again, so you're not gonna catch me outside in the winter. It's just not who I am. But again, I'll put pictures either here or at the end, because I know I'm still new to this camera, so I can't really gauge how much you can see and how much you can't. So this one has an I-cord finished border, and then again, it's a seamless construction. The way, I'm not trying to give away the pattern, but the way she has you do it, it is hard to visualize if you're just reading the pattern and you're kind of new to this type of construction. But it's definitely an interesting construction, and once it comes together, you're like, oh, why don't more people do it this way? This was really good. That was really genius. Again, I love Audrey from the Yarn Flakes. I think she's a great designer. If you're over here and you haven't watched her, I don't know why you're here, because this is my first rodeo. So it's not going to be awesome, but her designs are just great. I can't speak more highly of them. I love test knitting for her. She's one of my favorite designers, and I love test knitting her designs, because when you get them, you're like, how does this work? And then it comes together and you're like, oh, that's genius. Wow. The other one, my other finished object, this one is not yet released yet. Again, another pattern by Yarn Flakes. French name. I'm going to try my best. Don't judge. Don't judge me. This one is called the Sabine. It's a cable and colorwork hat. Did make one mistake that I'm going to point out to you. So just if you're interested in this pattern, you know what you're getting. I made these little maroon blips. This is actually supposed to be all blue. So it's kind of like a crown type construction. One of the testers did it in I want to say it was gray and yellow, and it does look like a crown. It looks amazing. But this is the pattern. It's a colorwork and cable pattern. These are cables. So I forget the needle size that is used, but this one, again, our deadline is January 31st. So hopefully by the time I get this up, if you follow Audrey on Instagram, you'll be getting teasers of when the actual release date is. If it's not on January 31st, it'll be fairly close to that. I don't wear a lot of hats because this is a lot and it never fits on a hat. When I wear my hair down, the hat just kind of flies away from my ears, so it's pointless. I do a lot of hoods because it kind of helps contain the hair, and even if I can't contain, I can usually push it to one side and it'll work that way. So this will probably be a gift for somebody, if not a birthday gift. I have one Christmas gift down, so I'm ahead of the game, I would say. Again, Sabine. This is knit out of Knit Picks, Galeo, and Stardust and Nebula. It's a 50% merino wool, 25% alpaca, 25% silk. So it does give you a nice colorwork pattern if you're kind of hesitant about silk blends with colorwork. But I like knitting the hat. It's definitely very engaging. It's a pattern that once you get the like large colorwork parts, like this part right here, you can watch some TV with it. And then the cable, I think, only happens every 2 or 4 rows. So again, you can still watch TV with it. Probably not something that you have to pay super attention to, but like one of your sitcoms or something like that that you can listen to but don't have to watch. Definitely something that you can do with that. I think that's all I have to say about that one. And I think that's all my finished objects. Yes, it is. So, take a drink really quick. This is one of my favorite mugs, Jack Skellington. I don't have regular mugs. I just have, I guess, character cup mugs. My husband says we need to get on our adulting game, but barely when people come over here do I offer them tea. I offer them alcoholic beverages, most likely. And it's because we're throwing some kind of shindig. So I'm not like, hey, have a mug. I'm usually like, hey, have this red Solo cup. Make sure you write your name on it. No waste. If you are a tea person, I'll tell you what I'm drinking. This is from my favorite tea company. You can see that. It's Yarny and Sons. I can't say the name, so I'll just hold it up there. It's a loose leaf tea. I mainly drink loose leaf tea unless I'm out traveling somewhere, and then tea bags kind of work better. But if you haven't tried loose leaf tea, definitely give it a try. It'll change your life. I promise you. It will change your life. I brew mostly English tea, but if like I have time, I'll do what's called a gung fu, which is a large amount of tea in a small cup where you kind of taste a lot of the flavors of the tea. So definitely give loose leaf a try if you haven't. Definitely one of my favorites. The next work in progress that I have is a test knit by, surprise, surprise, Audrey of the Yarn Flakes. This one is called, French name, don't judge, the Riu, R-I-U sweater. This one is going to be a cardigan as well. It comes in a sweater design. I am a cardigan person. It's just how I like to layer things. So if it comes in a sweater pattern, most likely I'm going to ask the designer, hey, can I make a cardigan? I'll take detailed notes, promise. So this one is the Riu. It has a texture panel down the side. Super, super neat texture panel. There is 2 versions of the sweater, but if you mix and match the different versions, you could get a total of 6 sweaters, which is super cool. 6 sweaters in one pattern. Awesome. So you can kind of mix and match the different techniques she has for the shaping, the different colors that you can use, and the ribbing. And then if you did something like me, you could have a sweater in one type of pattern and a cardigan in the other. How I do my steeks is I mark them in the front first off. So that is where my steek is. And then you can see this row of knit stitches, which translates into a row of purl stitches at the front. So that is my cutting line, and it makes it easier, especially if you're not doing, this one isn't colorwork, so you can't really do like the light, dark, and then know that you're cutting on that line. So it makes it easier when you're cutting. This one is going to be a machine steek because it is a alpaca silk blend, so it is not like a sticky wool, it's more of a slippery wool. So I like to do machine steeks when it's a slippery wool and I'm afraid that it won't hold together with just a crochet steek, or the stitches might slip. When I do a machine steek, I tend not to do the ribbon at the back just because it already has those machine stitches, and sometimes, depending on how much I'm paying attention when I'm doing the machine steek, they're not as stretchy, so I don't want to do a ribbon and then make it even less stretchy. And then this one is alpaca, so it's going to fall a little bit, and I don't want to hinder that natural drape that it's going to get, because I love a drapey cardigan, like when it just flows in the wind. Most of the time I don't do buttons on my button bands because I don't button them anyway, so I'm not going to waste the time to add buttonholes and then add buttons and pick out buttons and stress over that. I just don't do it because I don't ever, if I do have a cardigan that has buttons on it, I don't ever button it. What I will do, and I don't know if you can see it, I have a whole bunch of these type brooches, and I'll do a brooch if I want it to stay like closed or it's a windy day or something like that. But most of the time, I just let my cardigans fall. I'm not wasting time on that. Who has time for that? Not me. Definitely not me. So this one, don't make me lie, it's a March due date. I want to say either March 1st or March 31st, but my mind is telling me March 1st. So I think it's March 1st due date. So I'm almost done with the whole sweater in its entirety. I'm currently on the rib, but I literally just started. I think there's 6 stitches for rib. Purl knit. So I literally just started the rib, but after that I'll be on to the sweaters, or the sleeves. For this sweater, I'm going to see how it's going to work out, but in the pattern they're just normal stockinette sleeves. What I want to do is see if I can translate this texture pattern on the bottom of the sleeve right here and see how wide that is going to take up. Like if it comes more so towards the top of it, I'll probably nix that. But if it is a nice, because I have a wider arm, so if it's nice and it lays on the flat part of the arm, then I'll probably add that in there. Again, I'll put notes on how to do that in the pattern on my Ravelry page once it's released. Other than that, I think that's it for this pattern. Oh, top down raglan construction, super easy. So you got a basic raglan design right here, but it keeps it interesting because once you split for the sleeve, you start that texture pattern on the side. And so it's not just a stockinette. You have these areas where you have a level of interest. It's a slip stitch pattern, and it's not really difficult. Once you do it a couple times, you'll be able to read the knitting and read what you're doing. I think I only made one mistake on it, and I actually caught it like as soon as it happened, so I tinked back. I'm not one to rip out if I catch something like 10 or 12 rows below. I'm not ripping that out. I'm like the hat. I caught that at the crown. I'm not going back. Like, you get the gist. It was my mistake. I understand the pattern. It wasn't a mistake in the pattern. It was my mistake. So I'm not going back. It's not going to bother me. I'm not one of those perfectionist type people where it's going to bother me if I see something, because I am the only knitter in my family, the only real crafter in my family. So if I gift something and it has a mistake on it, most of the time, I'm the only one, literally, that's going to notice it. My family's going to think it's great. They're going to be like, oh, this is awesome. You made this. They're not going to see it. I'm not going to stress about it, because at the end of the day, they have a hand-knit object that's going to serve a purpose for them in their life, and that's all that I ask for. All that you can ask for, I would imagine. My last whip is the, not sure if I'm saying it right. It's the Nut by Arnie and Carlos. It's a top-down sweater, or a bottom-up sweater, that I'm knitting for my husband. Sorry, lost a stitch. And in his creativeness, he chose the exact colors that the design comes in. So I'm halfway through the body for him. This is Knit Picks Swish DK. And then this one is Knit Picks. It it'll be on my project page. But they're both Knit Picks yarn. He chose the exact colors that the sweater comes in, so I get to make what's in the book. When I told him to pick out his yarn colors, he goes, I just want the colors that are in the sweater, minus the pink. And I'm like, really? So we substitute the pink for the orange, and basically he's getting the exact sweater that Arnie and Carlos have in the book. Just no creative bone whatsoever. But it's okay. It's the first sweater I've knit for him. Yeah, the first bottom-up sweater that I've knit for him. So it should be interesting. If I would have known, I didn't read the pattern before, so that was a faux pas on me. But if I would have known it was a bottom-up construction, I would have asked him to pick a different pattern. But he was with me when they were doing their podcast, and they had just released the book, so they were showing all the different designs in the sweater, and he just happened to be in there, and he's like, I want that sweater. And I'm looking at him like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, I want that sweater. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So hopefully I get to finish that this year, because I started it October of 2019. It's not most pressing because my husband wears a uniform for his job, so he doesn't really wear a lot of sweaters per se. He does, when he goes out, it's the same t-shirt, Pink Floyd t-shirt, and a jacket or some kind of hoodie and some jeans. That's what he wears. So I'm not really rushing through it because I know he won't wear it. As for me, I will, if we're going to Walmart, I'm like, oh, what shawl can I wear? What sweater or cardigan can I wear? And he's like, I'm ready whenever you are. Pink Floyd, hoodie, jeans. That's what I'm going with. So I can't blame him because he wears the uniform every day. So if he wants to dress comfortably, who am I to say, you should wear something different? Because no one should police anybody's body or what they wear. Do what makes you happy. Live and let live. That is definitely one of my mottos. That is it for works in progress and finished objects. I will move on to future knitting, which is what I want to do coming up here relatively soon, because the Rio sweater is the last test knit that I have, unless she comes out with something in the next month. But I don't think that she is, because on her podcast she usually gives a mention as to what she's planning to do, and I didn't get that in the last podcast. So I think that'll be the last test knit for the season. And so I'm going to pick out another sweater that I want to knit. I'm looking to make the Sparkling Leaves sweater by Jill Carina. It's a colorwork yoke sweater. It has colorwork on the sleeves and the hem. So if you want to check that out, if I can't put a picture in here at the end, or I'll just put a link in the description box. But it is a beautiful, beautiful colorwork sweater. Obviously leaves on the design. And I want to do the leaves in this wonderful, wonderful yarn by Hugh Loco. It is one of her yarn of the month colorways. It's called Burnout. I don't think it's available on her site, and I don't think she does make the club colorways available. But if she does, it was one of the avant-garde colorways in month 3. So that is stunning. And make beautiful leaves. And then for the main body of the sweater, sorry if it crinkles, I'm going to do this Knit Picks gloss in this gray. So I think it'll make the colors definitely pop with one another. Give this beautiful yarn a focal point on the sweater. So I'm looking forward to that. And then for another type cardigan, I want to do get to it. This cardigan. Super, super cool. I'm probably going to make it a little bit longer because, again, I do like a longer flowy cardigan. It's called the Camilla Pinecone cardigan in this book, Refined Knits. I want to do, for future goals, I want to do a lot more knitting out of my books instead of knitting from digital patterns, because last year for my birthday, my husband got me 3 books with sweaters and shawls, which are the 2 things that I like to knit. And I've made 1 out of 1 book and marked 2 out of this second book, and then that's it. But I haven't actually started knitting out of the books heavily. So that's what I want to start doing, is definitely knitting from the books that I got, because I did put them on my Amazon list because I liked what was in them when you get the little view on Amazon, but I haven't knit from them. Mainly because I've been doing a lot of test knitting, and that was something that I started before my birthday, which was to get me knitting a lot of different things, because most of the time I'll knit a raglan and make it a cardigan, and that's what I'll do. Like 20 million raglans, cardigan version, and that's what I do. So in order to kind of get me outside my box, I started doing test knitting. It's definitely an idea if you have the time and kind of the yarn stash to go with it, to do test knitting for different designers. There is a test knitting pool on Ravelry. I think that's what it's called, test knitting pool. Just search, it's a group, and people who need test knitters will post what their test knitting, their design is, what the due date is, what kind of yarn it is, and just the basic schematics of the garment, accessory, whatever it is that they want you to test knit, and you can choose and ask to be a part of that test knit. So I chose to be a part of Janine's test knit, mostly Audrey, as you can see, a lot of her test knitting, and it just helps me get outside of my comfort zone in what I am knitting. Because that Severon, I would have never chosen an all-over texture like that. But I did truly enjoy doing it. If I would have went on Ravelry, I would have never chosen that and been like, that's what I'm going to knit. So it helps me do something that I wouldn't normally do, and it makes me do something because it has a deadline. So I have to knit it by this date. And it makes me finish it instead of being like, I'm done with that, or being really fickle with what I'm knitting. It helps me get to a deadline, do something outside of my comfort zone, do something outside of the box that I wouldn't normally choose. So if that's something that you're looking for, definitely look at the test knitting pool. See if designers that you follow on podcasts are doing test knitting. And that's how you get outside of your comfort zone and do it with a date and a purpose. At least that's how it was for me. If you're a procrastinator, probably not the best thing to do. Test knitting probably won't work out for you in the end, and then you'll end up disappointing someone or disappointing yourself. So I'm not one to set myself up for failure. This podcast is definitely outside my comfort zone, but let's go into why I'm going to start the podcast. That's a great segue. So why I want to start the podcast. I don't, like I said, none of my family is crafters or knitters. I learned how to knit off of YouTube. I got a bug one day and was like, I want to knit. I think I can do it. And I watched a couple videos on YouTube, and I haven't looked back since. That was about 7 years ago. So I've been knitting for quite some time, and I'm the only person in my family that knits. Like I said, I move around a lot with my husband's job, so I've never had the experience where I've had like a knitting group or a knitting group of friends where we can just go and hang out and knit, and people talk about what they're knitting or different techniques or finding out different techniques other than finding them out from podcasts or test knitting. I don't get to have that one-on-one with somebody about something that I love doing, which is knitting, crafting, macrame, all that yarny goodness. I don't get to do that. So in order to start this podcast, I can reach out into the interwebs. I wanted to start this podcast and kind of find people with that same interest. If you are like me, who don't have people that immediately surround you that share your passion, please leave a comment below. Please message me on Instagram or Ravelry. I'm most active on Instagram, so shoot me a message. I would love, seriously, love to chat with you, see what you're knitting on, see what kind of yarns you like, talk about different techniques. Like, I don't get to do that. I can explain to my husband 20 million times about knit and purl, and every time we have a conversation about knitting, I'm re-explaining about knit and purl, because that's not something that he enjoys. It's not something that he really is going to pay attention to or really grasp the concept, because he doesn't do it. So it's like talking to a wall sometimes. And then when you do knit in public, and if you're like me, who I don't have yarny friends, so I'm ending up knitting somewhere by myself, people come up to you and like, oh, what are you crocheting? And then you have to go into that, well, this is actually knitting. Knitting's with 2 needles. Crochet is with 1. All that jazz. So I would just love to be able to just chat with people and not have to start from a baseline down here. So please, like I said, shoot me a message. Shoot me a comment down below. And I would love to chat with you. I think that's all that I really want to talk about right now. So until next time, thank you for giving me a shot. Thank you for giving me a shot if you made it this far. Please leave a comment down below. Please subscribe. Please like, so I can reach out to other people and hopefully get even more friends that share my like for knitting. And until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful